Post Millennial is reporting CNN accuses Trump of spreading debunked conspiracy theories during Oval Office confrontation with South Africa's president. CNN criticized President Donald Trump's meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, calling the interaction an ambush after President Trump presented evidence of the persecution and killing of white South Africans. The meeting, held on Wednesday at the White House, drew attention when Trump showed Ramaphosa a video containing a violent political chants and statements by officials against Afrikaners, as well as footage of burial sites of white farmers. Responding to a reporter's questions about the alleged genocide of whites in South Africa, Trump said, "We have thousands of stories talking about it. We have documentaries, we have news stories," before playing video clips that included chants of "kill the Boer" and statements such as "killing is part of a revolution." Trump also cited reports of burial sites with over 1,000 white farmers and South Africans fleeing violence. So this is something that a lot of people that spend, any significant amount of time on X, political X, you'll see this kind of stuff fairly regularly. There's talk of the term genocide, I think, is loaded nowadays, and I personally wouldn't call this a genocide. I do think it's political persecution, but I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. Do you guys have a take on whether or not it's genocide?
I think you're right that when you use the term genocide, we have like a historically accurate use of the word, but ever since obviously Israel and Palestine, anyone that is anti-Israel, they're always saying that it's genocide, and it's like, well, is it really? And now in this case, I think you're kind of having the counter to that. Now I know completely different situations, but there is an actual term. I think definitions do matter, and having people that are persecuted or hunted because of their ethnicity does fall in that term of genocide. So, whether or not you say, how many hundreds of thousands or millions of people have died in South Africa, it's not a genocide. I think that that's actually not what's at the heart of the issue. It's, are people specifically being targeted with policies from a government that allows someone to be killed for no other reason other than the fact that they are this ethnicity or this group? I think that's what is happening in South Africa. Now, whether you're looking at the Uyghur Muslims, and there's so many other groups that actually have been targeted by the government. That's why I honestly don't think that calling what's happening in Gaza a genocide is the same, because they're not specifically just trying to go after people that are of Palestinian descent. They're trying to go after Hamas, and it's terrible, and I don't like any innocent life that is lost. But I do think that there's going to be this back and forth where the left is like, oh, so you can call this a genocide, but you won't call this a genocide. And I just think, again, President Trump and what he did to President of South Africa, Ramaphosa, he kind of had him stuck, because he's like getting him to acknowledge, look at all the things that are happening. And Trump, I think, was careful to say, like, I'm not going to say it's this term, but let's hear what people from South Africa have to say, and kind of letting the story tell itself. But I think, again, if you look at the actual term of genocide, it's targeted action going after specific groups that is supported by the government for no other reason other than they are the specific ethnic group.
Yeah, I mean, Brett, you were talking earlier about the definition of genocide and whether or not this meets the standard. Mm-hmm. You can't deny that it's political persecution. You have people being removed from their land, expropriation of property, and historically those types of things lead to, if they don't lead to genocide, they definitely have led to terrible, terrible oppression.
Well, yeah, I think the most interesting part of it is that, with American politics now kind of being a spectator sport, it becomes a bunch of people discussing whether the terminology fits the crime. And a lot of times I find that in a lot of ways ends up kind of watering down the horror of it all in a lot of cases, because it's a lot of us, whether it's even on here in a way, when you're discussing it on a show like this, or if you're talking about it on X, the people, at least what I saw from the clip from CNN, was them going after the terminology they're using, but they're doing that as a way of obfuscating the discussion that's supposed to be had, which is about what's actually happening there. And that's kind of a microcosm of how I see politics these days, which is everybody argues without actually knowing. There's no shared terminology for anything anymore, and you're talking past each other, and very little gets accomplished because everybody's using their own language, their own ends, and I find a lot of it to be very annoying.
Well, here's the thing. I think we also have to recognize
it's nothing this parliament can do.
Like, we have to recognize that in the current political environment, with both sides being so polarized, they're going to kind of stick to the thing that they think is going to help give them, a place to stand politically, to be able to make a move or an action. And because we're becoming highly Like we've had this whole racial identitarian thing that's been kind of popping up again, kind of like a counter to Black Lives Matter. I think you're seeing a tendency of the right to want to glom onto things that are quote unquote pro-white. That's my perspective. I'm not necessarily against calling out when bad things happen, but as an American citizen, that like I genuinely say this, like my heart goes out to people that suffer anywhere in the world. But as an American citizen, why should I care about a genocide that's happening in South Africa or a genocide that's happening anywhere if it's not American interest?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I really don't, from like, again, a strategic United States perspective, I don't really care that much.
Yeah. So it's you got something to say?
I was gonna say I agree with you about the pro-American part, but as a human being, it kind of sucks to watch countries overseas getting
That's because
so many people killed. As a human being, you know what I mean?
That's because the internet has forced you to now have access to all that information all the time. Human beings were not designed for that.
100%. I was actually gonna say something very similar. We aren't designed. We haven't evolved to be able to process the amount of suffering that we have access to view nowadays.
Yeah.
Like if you lived in a village, or in a some kind of small tribe or whatever, 1,000 years ago, you might see you might see a war, you might see a slaughter in your tribe, but you most likely wouldn't see that kind of stuff happen like on a day. You'd be plenty familiar with death. I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying, because there was a lot more death. Babies died, in birth. Women died in childbirth. You would be more familiar with death, but that kind of horror of like slaughter of people en masse, that kind of stuff you didn't see if you were a tribal person so much, unless you ran into another tribe or went into war. And so the phenomena of like slaughtering people is in the way that we see it today, where it's constantly fed to you through the internet or even through television. Like that wasn't the norm. I do think it's worth pointing out or listening to the way that CNN kind of framed the interaction, and I think we're going to go ahead and play the video that Donald Trump actually played for the South African president. So, are you going to run it?
His best diplomatic self to this meeting, but nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush that President Trump laid out with video, with printed out news stories. This was a laundry list of debunked conspiracy theories. Some South Africans are telling me this is AfriForum propaganda. AfriForum is a white Afrikaner lobby group that's considered a white nationalist organization by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Almost everything that President Trump said in the Oval Office is not true, was inaccurate, has been repeatedly debunked.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a couple things that are worth pointing out. First of all, there's the point that he was making, or the point that we started making, how this is always going to be framed as white supremacy, because that's what the left does.
Yep.
The political organizations in South Africa that are calling for the death of the white farmers and calling to push out people that own property and stuff, they're all Marxists, and they're basing their politics are based largely on anti-colonial post-colonial theory and stuff like that. We're going to go ahead and play the video, or some of the video that Trump played in the Oval Office today, so you can get a sense of what they were talking about.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. Yes. South African occupy land. That's who we are.
Honorable member,
you want to do.
Speaker,
you can withdraw my membership from this useless parliament.
Honorable. Yes, honorable member.
Must never be scared to kill. A revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
Okay, so that right there is straight out of if it's Franz Fanon's book, The Wretched of the Earth. So Franz Fanon wrote a book about decolonialism called The Wretched of the Earth, and one of the main tenets of decolonizing an area is you have to be violent. Violence is part of revolution. It's part of decolonizing, and you don't get to have decolonization without the violence.
Yeah,
and
revolution, nothing less, right? Like that's the mantra that's constantly spouted by these Marxists. So earlier, like I said, in the United States, we can frame things of like, why does the left glom onto this? Why does the right glom onto this? And you can kind of see those. But when you look at a bigger global picture, you're right. All of these movements are founded in Marxism, communism, a idea of like having a collective organization of people that need to have a violent revolution to overthrow the existing structure, all of it, whether it's economic or even just the way that a government is formed. You have to have the revolution. And you see it all throughout Africa. My father's from Sierra Leone in West Africa. We had a civil war in the 90s, right? And if you actually strip it down and boil it down, guess what happens? You had a movement of Marxists or people that were more communist aligned, and that's what you continually have happen all throughout Africa. It's not an issue of whether it's colonialism or decolonialism. It's about Marxism. It's about communism. And that's the reason why 80 years after basically the British Empire left and moved away from Africa, you still have the issues that you have because they want to institute a system that is anti-human. Communism is anti-human. You cannot strip people's property and rights away and redistribute it willy-nilly. People just don't stand for it. And so you're seeing this, and that's really what's happening. So when you go back to initially what that reporter guy was saying from Nairobi, he was saying, oh, President Trump is lying. He's pushing all these conspiracies. That's their framing from a Marxist perspective is you have to say reality and truth that you see it is a lie. Don't believe your lying eyes. And that's what this all comes back down to is that this is like just communism and Marxism in a different flavor.
So I'm going to go back to some of the stuff that they were saying on the video.
Shoot to kill Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. To kill Yamasa. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer.
The mayor of DA in PE is a white man. So these people, when you want to hit them hard, go after a white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched. They will be touched, don't worry. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. Shoot!
Yeah, so, I mean, the argument that this isn't about, racially motivated retribution, I mean, I don't think that anyone can seriously make that argument.
Yeah, not in a sane world. I mean, the way that the left always tries to frame it, right, is that racism can only flow one way. If you're white, you're racist to other people, but if you're black, because of oppression or whatever, and especially in the case of South Africa, they can say, well, because of apartheid, we can't be racist. We're just simply getting our get back. And it's like, well, no, from a technical term, you are discriminating against people on the basis of their race. You are being racist. But yeah, it's what to me is the most fascinating. It's dead giveaway. He's wearing a red beret. I mean, red beret, dead giveaway, man. You're got me, bro.
You should also be very weary of the way in which much of that language has already crept into Western Marxist language and rhetoric, whether it's decolonizing math or destroying or eliminating whiteness. The worst part is there's a lot of useful idiots in colleges who don't get the full perspective from the people that are teaching these courses to them until they've been fully radicalized. And then by the time they try to explain to you what that means, they can't really understand or explain to you what it means to decolonize math other than to tell you that it's too white, right? But the problem is the language goes the whole way up. It's top down. That language works at the top of that discussion. It works all the way to the bottom when you're talking about something like whether your college classes have enough of one race or another.
Yeah.
Look at what they've done to colleges that don't allow enough Asian students in because they test too high. They don't care.
Yeah. There are people that'll make the argument that, oh, these are sophisticated ideas. And part of the problem is when you present sophisticated ideas to unsophisticated people, you end up with things like, more racism, but actually the ideas are good. It's just that they've been given to people in a way that they don't fully understand the ideas. And I think that stuff like this kind of debunks that, because at the end of the day, like, the bottom line of it is just take their stuff because they're a specific race, because of power dynamics. Honestly, like, I think the race is actually secondary to when it comes to Marxism. 100%. Race is secondary to it. It happens to be in South Africa that the white people were the people in power, and the black people have historically not been the people in power. But I don't think that that's necessary in the overall in the overall situation. But it is functionally that way, and I don't think that you can deny that.
Yeah, I mean, if you just think about it, leftism, communism is always reductionist. So let's say that they were able to accomplish their great, goal. They were able to get rid of whiteness in South Africa, and they had all the control, and they kicked all the white people out or made them slaves or whatever their dream is, right? They're just going to now focus on the next ethnic group that they feel has created an oppressor versus oppressed. Because that's the trueness of Marxism and communism, is they will find a reason. There are plenty of, again, all throughout the globe, plenty of the same people that have killed other people that would be discernibly no different to me, but they would say, oh, well, this is this group. Yeah, they have all of the farming technology, so they're oppressing us. Or this group over here, they're doing this. And I mean, you look all throughout human history, especially during Stalin, right? Like, starving out the people that, I can't remember the ethnic group or whatever, but in Russia, like, they starved.
Well, it wasn't ethnics, it was kulaks.
Yes, the kulaks.
This was before they decided before word had kind of got around and people realized that capitalism works. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so exact example. That also happened in Cambodia, right? So the whole race thing is a ruse. The same with gender ideology. It's all a ruse. If you look, whatever they believe, and by they I'm talking about people that believe in this communist Marxist ideology, they will find their wedge. If it's about the environment, they'll use the environment. So none of those things actually matter in the grand scheme. It's all about what can they use as a wedge to induce the revolution.
I don't know why you guys don't believe what he's saying. He said they debunked it. It's debunked. Yeah. What people say on the streets, debunked. What you see in the videos, debunked. Just like they say about masks, debunked. So if he's told me debunked,
there's a lot of power to a lot of people about being told something by a guy in a suit.
Right.
Like, that's very powerful.
He seems like he knows a lot of things with that suit there.
He's got a nice suit on. They got some great computer graphics on there. He seems like he knows what he's talking about.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.